Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, top Democrat on a top Dem on foreign relations and judiciary. I've got a million things to touch on with you, Senator. On this, what we just heard, J.D. Vance saying that this agent's protected by absolute immunity, and you have DHS boxing out the state agency that was supposed to be part of a joint investigation, blocking access to evidence, citing distrust between the agencies, if you will. Do you think this means the investigation in Minnesota is effectively over?
I hope not. Transparency is what's important in a democracy. In order for our communities to have confidence that law enforcement is actually following the law, there needs to be a thorough and transparent investigation of this tragic incident where, by all evidence,
Senator, do you think you're going to get one? A thorough and transparent?
The ICE agent did not act in a reasonable or responsible way. I'm sorry, Kate, I just wanted to get out that, like millions of Americans, I was shocked to see the video of the shooting of Renee Good yesterday, a 37-year-old mother of three who had just dropped off one of her children at school. It is hard for me to square what has been said by Secretary Noem and Vice President Vance, that Renee Good was a domestic terrorist, a member of a leftist organization, with these facts. So if they have that evidence, they should come forward with evidence that suggests that she was intending to or attempting to harm the ICE officer. Frankly, we need transparency, and that requires having state and local law enforcement fully participating in the investigation of this terrible incident.
Yeah, and that's the question is thorough and transparent. Is it going to happen? And if not, that which it seems where it is right now, is the investigation then over? Let me ask you about Venezuela. The president just posted that he canceled a second wave of attacks that he had planned because the acting government there is cooperating and political prisoners are being released. We have seen political prisoners being released. Are things working out better there than you at first thought might be happening?
Well, here's what happened in the Senate yesterday, Kate. 5 Republicans joined with Democrats to move forward a war powers resolution that would constrain President Trump's ability to keep engaging in military action against Venezuela without the approval of Congress. It is a positive that political prisoners are being released. It would be a positive if Venezuela abandoned its long, close partnership with Cuba, with Russia, with Iran. But frankly, the fact that President Trump's day is beginning with a meeting with major oil executives rather than by talking to the opposition, pressing for free and fair elections or the restoration of democracy, continues to reinforce that his priority in Venezuela is getting access to their oil rather than being a champion for human rights and democracy.
I want to play for you what the president, though, is now threatening in a new interview.
We are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country.
Hitting the land with regard to cartels and specifically mentioning Mexico, did you learn of any suggestion of plans for this in the briefings that you received this week?
Look, Mexico is an important partner and ally of the United States, as is Canada, and President Trump has threatened to attack both of them. One of the things that makes our relations with neighboring countries and longstanding partner countries difficult, frankly, is that President Trump keeps making threats to attack them in ways that don't help promote our partnership and our security. Forgive me 1 second. I just lost my ability to hear you. Thank you.
Oh, so can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, great. I mean, you can handle a lot, Senator. I know you're poised, but this is impressive as always. With you being able to hear me, I do want to ask you on very seriously another issue I know you focused a ton on, which is Iran. The protests that have been happening for 2 weeks now. The images coming out that we can get of the protests in Iran are startling. There's protests in every province in the country, and Iranian authorities have cut off phone service, cut off internet access. Is this the beginning of real change, do you think? Is it too soon to say that?
It is too soon to say that, but I hope and pray that the people of Iran know that the United States encourages their desires to be rid of a theocratic and oppressive regime that for decades has ruthlessly suppressed any dissent, has murdered, publicly executed thousands of people who have demonstrated in previous efforts to try and overthrow the folks who lead that country. The IRGC, which is the military force that really suppresses dissent internally and has exported Iran's terrorism throughout the region, has a fairly iron grip. So the fact that millions have come out in the streets, as you said, Kate, all over the country is an encouraging sign. I do think President Trump needs to consult with Congress before threatening that he will randomly take strikes against Iran's leadership. He seems to have suddenly found his inner nation builder as he is taking a sharp turn from how he campaigned. I'll remind you, Kate, he campaigned against starting new foreign wars. He campaigned on lowering your costs and making America healthy again. And with the skyrocketing rates of health insurance, with his tariffs causing costs to rise, he hasn't been doing great on those two. And now he's threatening to take military action against Mexico, against Iran, against Colombia, against Greenland. It's important for him to have clearer, more transparent explanations to the American people of how doing so is in our interest. But I'm encouraged to see the people of Iran rising up against the brutality of the regime that has repressed their desires for free expression and for free lives for decades.
One point of clarity that he has offered in this new wide-ranging New York Times interview, when asked about if there were any constraints on his power around the globe, he said, yes, one thing, my own morality. I don't need international law, is what he said. I don't want to hurt people. Should the United States get involved in Iran?
Look, the United States needs to encourage and support movements for democracy around the world. We need to support the Ukrainians who have fought so hard against Russian aggression. I'll remind you, it's the president of Ukraine who has been democratically elected, not the leader of Russia. And President Trump seems to forget that. In the case of Iran, which has long supported Russia's brutal aggression against Ukraine, I do think it's important for us to support those average citizens who are coming out into the streets seeking a freer future. But it's hard to come up with an exact pattern in which our military action might help. In many cases, military action against a dictatorship gives them the excuse for ruthless suppression of dissent internally. And one of the delicate issues that's unfolding right now is how President Trump and his administration is handling the Maduro regime that is still in power, except for Maduro in Venezuela. There is a legitimate opposition that won the last election. And so my hope is that President Trump keeps an eye on how we deliver stability in Venezuela while supporting a transition to democracy, not focusing principally on oil, but focusing on values. Because around the world we are respected, not because of our military might, but because of our values. And President Trump has taken us in a starkly different direction, where he's using our military might, as he said in that New York Times interview. He doesn't see any constraints from international law, only the constraints of, as he put it, his own morality. Well, Kate, this is someone who ran on draining the swamp the first time. His second time as president, he's swimming in the swamp. He's one of the most corrupt presidents in American history. And that's not the sort of morality that I would like to be guiding the United States on the world stage.
Senator Chris Coons, thank you for coming in. John.